Greetings. Keith Prather here with the NCM Farm Equipment Outlook for the next 4 or 5 months. Let me screen share here. Here we go. So, oops, I got to get up one slide. Sorry, I made a mistake there. The Farm Equipment Demand Index is kind of still giving us some weak signals. It did jog sideways. We got just about a 9/10% growth rate month over month in November, which was the latest data that we have, full data available for, but it was about 6.4% lower year over year. So we're still continuing some of that trend that we kind of came out of 2024 with, and we're seeing some weak signals, obviously still early in 2025. But I think there may be some reasons to be a little more optimistic about the year. We'll get more into that in a second. So industrial production and farm equipment, we still see it inching up just a little bit. So 0.7% higher year over year. So we're seeing just a little more activity on the production side of things, but it's still about 9.2% lower year over year. Now, we do think as we get a little bit deeper into 2025 that we'll start to see this increase a little bit. Still love to go back to the Purdue CME Capital Investment Index. When you look at their overall farm sentiment index, it really has improved. That index has jumped about 50 points over the last 3 months, and since the election, to be honest, it cooled just a little bit between November and December, but generally still giving us really, really firm signals. When we look at the capital investment index, then sentiment is a lot higher than what their intentions to spend are, but we're still getting a pretty decent signal, even at 48 points. You're talking about the highest signal since really 2021 and kind of coming out of the pandemic. Now, granted, okay, if we're going to take the downside of things, we're going to realize that it is weaker than what we had in the whole period prior to the pandemic. But we still like this nice little pop. And again, most of the reason why it's a little bit low and remains low is that even though their sentiment's improving, and I think the environment will eventually get better for them, that there may be a new farm bill and they're going to get a lot of support from the Trump administration, that we still have a ways to go before commodity prices get back up where we think they should be, that the input prices really start to come down the way they should, and that farm incomes really improve. And so still expecting a little bit of a dip in farm incomes this year. Now, the good news is that off-farm incomes, so most, especially small, medium-sized farms, are going to be dual income operations, and so off-farm incomes are still doing pretty well, growing 4 to 5%. So there's still going to be some capacity out there for spending, and definitely interest in improving equipment and modernizing and doing things that make the whole operation more profitable. But as we kind of have as a bottom line bullet, still a challenging environment out there. So the machinery forecast that we put together also just for the equipment side, and this is just the production side. So the index that we looked at earlier is the demand side of the world. This is going to be the production side of the world. And even though this has a lot of demand metrics in it, kind of gives us a little bit of a signal as to what's happening. Now, this is also a machinery sector that isn't just ag. It also has a little bit of transportation equipment and a little bit of construction equipment in it. But you can still see that it's a fairly flat environment looking out over the next year. We're just not getting a lot of strong rebound signals. The model is showing us some upside potential, but it's also showing some downside risk. And again, a lot of that's going to come back to kind of what happens in the commodity environment. There are a couple of things I want to pause on this. There are a couple of things that we think looking into 2025 that we want to watch. Number one, commodity prices are fairly flat at the moment. Now that can change, but when you look at wheat prices, corn prices, and soybean prices, just some of those core commodities, we see a fairly flat environment. A couple of those commodities, soybeans and corn, expected to be a little bit down year over year in the price per bushel range. So we're still going to have a more difficult marketing environment. But on the input cost side, what we're seeing is seed prices still staying high, rising, 4 to 5%, but all the other input costs from fuel to fertilizer, to other equipment and to other components used in farming should be reducing at a fairly stable rate. So we're going to watch that carefully, and as we get kind of in deeper into Q1, we'll get a little more clarity into some of that. We know that the actual farming environment, and in the briefing, you'll see that we always put the drought monitor map in there because we are watching what's happening with actual growing conditions, and it looks like growing conditions are going to be pretty good for the early start to 2025. We're getting a lot of snowpack around the country, which adds obviously a lot of moisture and a lot of nitrogen to the soil. Hopefully, farmers can kind of get in and get plantings done. But with La Nina setting in, some of the areas that do have some strong drought signals right now, like in the upper plains, are expected to kind of get some relief as we start to get some weather systems that kind of move along the upper northern band of the US. Areas down in the deep south, like you're talking about, really southern Texas along the border and New Mexico, which we don't have a lot of ag coming out of that area. We have a lot of ranching coming out of that area. We're starting to see some stronger drought signals. And so the rest of the country, though, looks pretty good. I know we've had some crazy wildfire conditions in California, but generally, a lot of California, especially up in the northern regions, they've got a lot of snowpack. They're going to get a lot of runoff, so the ability to water and to keep crops healthy is going to be pretty strong for most of 2025. It looks like. So anyway, again, in summary, we've got pretty good general GDP growth across the country, but farms specifically still going to be under pressure. And we'll see what a new farm bill looks like when the new Trump administration gets into place, see what they can actually get passed. You've seen some continuations of some extensions of the existing bill, but we'll have that as a news item coming up, and we'll look and see what kind of relief is in it. But anyway, until then, hope everyone stays safe and healthy, and we'll see you next month. Okay, take care. Bye bye.